Hi, I'm Terri Murphy, Senior Editor for Realty Times Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph and with the Data Advocate. And we are here today with two very powerful women with very, very powerful messages. We have the authors of Own Your Own, A Widow's Guide to Emotional and Financial Well-Being. It's in its sixth, 6th edition, which tells you that it is loaded with powerful information. Part of that reason is because it mixes both the emotional and the financial. So let me tell you about the superstars behind it. I want to introduce Alex Armstrong. She's a CFP, one of the women who is the chairman emeritus of the Armstrong, Fleming and Moore Incorporated. It's a national financial planning firm based in Washington, D.C., where she started in 1983. Recently retired, though, she's focused her career on advising single women, dual income couples, and retirees that are close to retirement, which is why this book is so good. Then she also was the financial planning column for Better Investing magazine for over 40 years. So clearly, Alex, you can write, would you say?
And I like to.
And then she's got this adorable sidekick who's also a powerhouse. Her name is Mary Donohue. She's a PhD. She was suddenly widowed and left with two young children at the young age of 47. So throughout her professional career, she's led a successful psychology practice also in Washington, D.C., which is apparently how you two got together, which we'll find out later. She's been a contributor to the Washingtonian magazine and spoken on both radio and television, including CBS and Good Morning America. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Now, this is amazing because the book, you quoted some statistics that were absolutely shocking, actually, about the number of widows versus the number of widowers in the United States. Who wants to address that?
Alex, take it.
Well, it's 3-1. That's the amazing thing. It was the census in 2020, and men, there were 3,487,000, and widows were 11,271,000. So there we are. And we all know that we women live longer than men, and this is a good proof of it.
And we do. And unfortunately, you pointed out something that was really brilliant. You said it was younger women that were also interested, because the primary concept that you present in this book is unique, because there are plenty of books on financial planning and whatever. Mary, what was the primary concept of this book?
Well, the primary concept of the book, On Your Own, is that the marriage, if you will, of emotional experiences and finance, and particularly for widows, of which I was an early one, as you've just mentioned. So what we came together on this based on where we were. I was the widow with whom Alex was stuck, basically, after the untimely death of my husband. And that is how we really got together and began to work together.
So, Alex, what was your actual objective for writing the book then, to try to put this together?
Well, what was happening was, as a financial planner, I was having a lot of people like Mary come in and who were clueless about what was going on. And it wasn't because they weren't able to figure it out. It's because they were busy with their careers, they were busy with their children, they were busy with the social life for the family. And if they could delegate something to somebody else, they did, and their husbands took over, then they died. And there they were without knowing anything about it. And this is true today. You think maybe it was in the old days, but it's still true, because, we're great multitaskers as women, but there comes a limit to what we can handle. And so that I wanted to write a book where they could read a chapter at a time. And I could say, read chapter 5, that'll help you through this stage. And that really was the genesis. So like you said, I didn't want to write another financial book because the psychological impact was so important. And that's why I asked Mary, who was a client, a friend, and a widow, hey, Mary, can you do this with me? And she said yes. And we wrote our first one 30 years ago, and here we are doing it one more time.
And that's got it to
we wrote this after she shaped me up, because I really when she inherited me, when you're dealing with loss, and mine was sudden, and it's simultaneously, you don't know where you are financially and how you're going to be able to move forward, support your children, and all of these things. It's mighty scary. And knowing that my husband had tried to get me involved, and I would say, honey, another day, the children here, there, whatever. I didn't want other widows to have a similar experience. I wanted to contribute in a way to saying, look, this is something you're going through. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I really wanted to join with Alex in presenting this to women, many of them in my experience.
Well, we can agree that it's difficult and stressful time. And especially if you have young children, you're dealing with all of these other elements of high priority, and then money, which is often very, in older women, we've noticed is not very disclosed or shared because the husband took care of it. You brought that up beautifully, Mary. And then something happens and they have no idea where they are. So this book's a little different. How does it specifically help women through the grieving process? Because when you're grieving, you can't hardly think about anything else. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. And when you're dealing with loss and all of those emotions, and simultaneously you're in limbo, which is, as we know, psychologically is a terrible place to be. You're frightened, you're scared, you don't know what is going to happen. So one, it tells you you're not alone. And it also communicates to you in ways that you can understand how to deal with this financial issue. So the two go hand in hand in moving forward and in actually healing from our experiences.
Well, Alex, you're obviously the financial planner. And as soon as you say financial to somebody like me, it's like, oh, doesn't that mean checkbooks? So you actually provide specific tools. Talk to us about how did you combine those kinds of things, both financial and emotional, to make it appealing, and yet manage to get it through such an amazing evolution, because it's in its 6th printing. I mean, having been an author and worked with top 6 printings, that's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. Well, we wove, again, it's not just a how-to book. There are plenty of tips to do things, and we do it sort of stage by stage because we say you can't do it all overnight. But we weave the story of 4 widows through the book. So we might have a chapter on how to organize your files, which really sounds dry and unexciting. But then we have 4 widows who are at different stages of their lives, age 40, 50, 60, 70, and are in different geographic locations. They're basically composites of people we've worked with, where we can put in all the issues that particular person might go through. So you're reading sort of a novel at the same time you're reading a how-to, which I think makes it more palatable. I think, Mary, you say that women relate more to stories, isn't that correct?
Yes,
In fact,
they do.
Mary is my story master. Yeah, I'll throw out the idea, and we really do work on this together. And when we worked on this summer, we had the computer screen up with the text there, and then we'd talk through and we'd say, well, what do you think that she would do under these circumstances? Sometimes we'd argue, but then we'd resolve how we thought the person would react.
Wow.
The women, by the way, the hypotheticals that we have in the book, for example, Diane, who is the 40-year-old, is left with young children, etc. So what happens is they illustrate in each decade what is the most likely things you will be encountering and how to deal with them. But it also makes it readable. And Alex has said that some of her finance people actually say they read it for the story. To see how each one of these women is going to end up, which is kind of amusing. And also, I appreciate it.
Well, we know, I know as an educator and as a speaker that today, with the average attention span of an adult being 5 seconds, that if you don't have a story, they're not interested. And the fact that you were brilliant enough to break it up into age groups, that's totally engaging, because somebody at 40 is going to have a totally different life than somebody at 70.
Exactly.
So it's an amazing way that you did this. So Alex, you shared with us your inspiration becoming an expert at financials and then just helping widows with that? Was it because of your association with Mary, or did you see it over and over again?
Well, I saw it over and over again, but I really started earlier than that. My mother was widowed when she was 48 and I was 8. So I was an afterthought in the family. And we were left with next to no money, which was a big surprise to mother. And then mother had a small fund that her father had set up for her. But unfortunately, the manager mismanaged it. And so by the time she figured it all out, there was nothing left. So she went to work for the first time in her life at 48. Fortunately, she spoke 3 languages, but she had no skills. And so she worked in a dress shop and she for a minimum wage. So she was very good at what she did, and we managed to survive. But it's part of how I got into the financial field, in that I didn't want this ever to happen to me. And so I wanted to be in control of my financial life. And then from there, I wanted to help as many women as I could not be in the same strait. So when you were alluding earlier, we had a couple of women who were single who came back to us after this edition and said both of them are in the financial field, but they said single and I'm in the financial field, but still I picked up some tips that I can use in my life.
Wow. So we know it's ubiquitous for different age groups. And, Mary, your tragic loss being a widow at such a young age with children, I mean, clearly it's hard enough to deal with the loss of a partner and then with the loss of a
Right.
father. But you wrote a children's book on top of being a mom and collaborating and writing a book called What's My Job? Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yes, I can, but it has nothing to do with this. This is, I have done a great deal of work with families in the process of restructuring, which is primarily divorce. And the children with whom I have worked with untold numbers throughout my career always are stuck. And so this book was generated to be read to children, pretty much elementary school age children, to help them understand it's, for example, not their job to take care of the parents. It's their job to play. It's their job to learn. It's their job to have fun. And it is not their responsibility for their parents. And so that was the genesis of that for that aspect of my life that I was also working on.
I bring that up because Mary, Alex talked to me about how you were her storyteller. And I think that highlights the emotional side of this as well, because like you said, your money, we all need that to survive and to thrive and to have the kids not worry about that. And then you have this other element of talent, which is really terrific. There's a question about the hypothetical profiles that you used in relating to the material. Tell us a little bit about how that worked, Alex. I mean, how did you incorporate it? Where did you get the idea?
Oh, well, we got the idea. I'm let Alex take it, but we got the idea from working on it together of how it would be best to get the material across. And we agreed, as Alex has already said, that she didn't want it to just be a money book. And I said, well, I didn't want others to go through my experience because I resisted. My husband would have been very happy to have me share in all of this information, and I just resisted. So I wanted to present in a way that is readable and relatable how not to do that. And that was the objective in these hypotheticals. So like the 40-year-old has young children, the 50-year-old is a stepmom and issues in that area. So we put them together. We put together these hypotheticals to illustrate the most likely things that would occur during that decade.
That is so unique and so brilliant. I think that's what makes this book so powerful. And Alex, one of the things that you talk about is that you collaborated even this summer and argued a little bit. But one of the most amazing things that I've seen is that you've got huge fans that have said, I thought, the 5th book was awesome, but the 6th book is even better. Tell me a little bit about what you do to update this thing, because you and I both know the tax laws change, everything changes, people's needs change. Tell us a little bit about how brilliant you've been able to do that.
Well, you almost have to. I mean,
Yeah.
part of the reason we had the first edition, added on to was because of tax law and market changes and investment changes. As we all know, the arena is a lot different than it was 30 years ago. And but we also did the human part of it. For instance, internet dating was nothing 30 years ago, and of course now it's it's part of everybody's life. But also, like with the oldest widow, we have her sister in a continuing care facility, and we have her considering whether to go to the thing. This is something a widow in that age group would typically go through, and what to look for in the continuing care. So we don't just deal with the widow, the usual things about how we get over this, but we go through their life challenges. The woman who is the stepmom doesn't really get on with her stepchildren, and she has a brother who doesn't help her, and she has a mother who needs help. And what is she going to do? Because she, in addition, has just lost the love of her life. So you really get into real life problems. And so it's not just, see the lawyer, see the accountant, get, your budget together. It's really real life problems.
Gosh, that is just so insightful. And Mary, one of the things that I noticed in the book, which I'm in the process of picking my chapters because you can do that so easily, is the reacting to the loss. You talk about the stages of loss. You talk about how to get organized, because that's, I think, where most people stop. Because Mary, you said yourself, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll get to it.
Mhm.
But you don't. And when something like
Oh.
this happens, and it's happened to all of us, where do you start?
Small. Start with baby steps, actually. But I think I'm glad you raised that, because that's one of the areas that has changed over the years. We had the stages and the tasks of mourning was just what was expected. But in recent years, that thinking has changed to take into consideration that all death is not equal, that the woman who is losing a husband from a long terminal illness is not the same as a woman who's losing her husband from an accident or some other tragedy. So they're coming to this from very different places. The woman who's got a husband who's been ill for a long time is dealing with something very different than sudden loss. So it's really encouraging people. I think I want to say, though, that really the hope for anyone reading this book is that all women, if they put their mind to it, can move forward. And that, as Alex said, they're not limited because they just were never exposed to it. Or like me, I just didn't want to deal with it. Like never, I didn't want to do it. That's it.
I went, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's it.
No, I was just going to say to Alex, having been a single woman and having had people die and that kind of thing, one of the issues I found is that the advice I got was not necessarily in my interest. It was in other interests. And so one of the things you address in here is your own financial attitude. And I think, Mary, you kind of touched on it. For me, it was like, yeah, you take care of it, you take care of it. But in fact, it didn't really serve me at all. I didn't really understand it. So Alex, how do you handle that when you're actually working with someone?
As Mary said, patiently. You just, I always say it's not higher math. It's you can learn this, and if you want to, I can help you do it. And any good advisor would do the same. I actually work with advisors on how to work with widows more effectively. And one of the things I say to them, take it slowly, like as Mary said, baby steps, take it step by step. Eventually they'll get there. And you don't mean to talk down to the person, but as I said, even if they could grasp it, they're impeded by their emotions. And that's standing as a barrier for them moving forward. And so we've got to consider we as advisors have to consider that this is not somebody whom you're saying, yes, I understand your problem. You've got to move forward through the emotional stage. So it takes more patience as an advisor. So it's important you have an advisor who really understands that and is willing to take the time to work with you.
But I
Well,
also think,
go ahead.
Alex, like in my case with you, you also have to judge the person you're working with, because with Alex, I would hem and haw. I didn't know what to do, and what would my husband want, and what would my father want. And one day she just got fed up with me and said, "What is wrong with you? You are a professional woman. You're running a practice. What is it going on? What's going on here?" And that was it. In my case, I sort of snapped to and thought, gee, maybe she's right. I should just listen and learn.
Well, she
I don't
she
think
looks
I
like-
was quite that vehement. I think I was a little more tactful, I hope.
I named
But I
it,
did
Alex.
say, you make decisions in the rest of your life. Why aren't you moving forward and making decisions here?
and
that's
there you see it.
Mary's attention.
And there you see it. They look all soft, but don't underestimate these two.
Right.
They are definitely strong. Well, you talk about that, identifying today's financial attitudes and realities, and some of us could really benefit from that chapter. But here's the thing, ladies, you want to buy somebody a real gift? This is the gift, because at the end of the day, we need to understand finances, and we tend as women, because I interviewed over 574 to date, and finance being one of them, is one of the things that we don't necessarily give a whole lot of attention to. And if you're young, and you and I both know this, the compound effect starts kicking in, so that when you are at 50 or 60, you've got some financial security. So the book is available on Amazon. It is On Your Own, A Widow's Guide to Emotional and Financial Well-Being. And Alexandra and Mary have done I'm going to say, a unique and amazing combination of putting together this in a way, in a paradigm, a story that will engage you and help you at the same time. Now, the best way to reach you, either of you, is email, would you say?
Yeah,
Yes.
on your own authors at gmail.com.
At Gmail.
Mhm.
Okay, there you go.
On your own authors.
On Your Own Authors at gmail.com.
gmail.com.
And we all know Gmail. So I'm hoping you'll join us again for another segment, because it sounds to me like we may want to get deeper into the book with specificities in different age groups, because this is one way too valuable, and truly an honor to meet the both of you. I'm Terri Murphy for the Women's Wisdom Network. Join us again for another segment on how women help other women. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.